let's talk about the most difficult north node in astrology. I think my opinion on this topic is going to surprise you. I must acknowledge that the difficulty of any north node is dependent on a particular soul's challenges, and in this way, every north node is difficult and challenging to the native. With that said, there is one north node placement that stands out to me amongst all of my clients over the past 9 years as being particularly difficult. And that is when someone has their north node in the 4th house, according to whole sign houses. Their north node falls in the 4th sign from their ascendant. This is a challenging placement, especially in Western culture and especially in modern times. The 4th house is opposite to the 10th house, which sits at the very top of the chart. And the 10th house is where we shine. The 10th house is the light of day. The 10th house is the stage that we step on where everyone cheers our name. And the 4th house is the opposite of that. The 4th house is the dark of night, alone, inside of our house, the middle of the night, there alone with our thoughts in the dark. Ancient astrologers taught that the south node, which is opposite to the north node, is where a person would experience a diminishing of energy over time, almost like a bucket with a hole in the bottom where energy would just fall out, fall out, fall out. It's a decreasing point, a point where energy is decreased, versus the north node where the ancients taught that energy would increase over time. So what you would want to see would be something positive, like a positive planet like Jupiter or Venus, like right there next to a north node in a really positive house like the 5th house or the 11th house or the 9th house. That would be ideal. Just in a general sense, that would be ideal. But what we see for a person with a 4th house north node is that there's a diminishing of that person's public reputation, of their fame, of their recognition, of their legacy as their life goes on. And then there's this increase of their home life, of their private life. And that's not such a bad thing, or at least like that wouldn't have been such a bad thing. It certainly wouldn't have been a bad thing 100 years ago, 200 years ago, 500 years ago, 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago, or really at any other point in human history. Because at every point prior to now, it was common to find oneself surrounded by family. Usually we found generations of families living together in the same home. You know, and there was that sense of togetherness. And when you woke up in the darkness, in the middle of the night, as the 4th house represents, well, that could have been a cozy place there with your partner, maybe your children, you know, maybe a variety of farm animals. There was a rich and vivid home life. But now, many people find themselves, you know, with failed marriages or not having ever married. They may find themselves totally alone with their thoughts in the middle of the night, worried, afraid for their future security. They may find themselves very, very lonely. And now we have this culture that prizes social media, that's all about likes, and it's all about comments, and it's all about tweets, and it's all about how many followers do you have, and it's all about the 10th house. We have this society that says, you know what matters? 10th house. And you know what doesn't matter? 4th house. No one cares. And yet these people are here to experience an increase of the 4th house over time. What's interesting about these individuals with their south node in the 10th house, and I think why they stick out to me, is because they're so strong. They're coming from lifetimes of working so hard to achieve goals and objectives in the world. And so I think their pain really speaks to me because they don't really complain. The reason I know they're in pain is because of my intuitive intel and my abilities, and because they come to me as clients, but otherwise you wouldn't know. You wouldn't know about their insecurities, you wouldn't know about their anxiety, you wouldn't know about their depression. They're not the type to come up to you and say those things. And yet it's there. I don't necessarily agree with all of the modern significations of the fourth house. In my observations over about a decade, I see that the fourth house is sort of like the underworld in many ways. I mean, it's the underworld of the chart. If there is an underworld of the chart, it's the underworld of the chart. It's literally there at the bottom. It pulls people into the underworld. It pulls them into the private life. It asks them to consider who they really are, apart from the ascendant, apart from how they look, apart from the 10th house, apart from their accomplishments, apart from their work, apart from their finances, apart from their relationships, is who are you in the dark of night. And that's a scary thing for a lot of people. And for a lot of people, I think the scariest part is like they don't know. And the fourth house asks them to go on that journey, to come to know, apart from all of that, apart from the superficial, apart from the mask, who are you, and further, what do you need? And that's what sticks out to me the most about the fourth house. It strips off everything. We have to go and we have to fix the inner voice. If we started to absorb an inner voice from a less than loving figure in our early life, we have to begin to change that inner voice, to build ourselves up to become the parent that we wish we had. That's the path. Some people have North Node in the fourth house and they have lots of kids and they get married and they have a happy domestic life and it's 10 of cups and it's great. It can be great. Any North Node can be great. I just thought it needed to be said that the fourth house North Node is really difficult, because when people are teaching about North Node in the fourth house, they're not necessarily saying that. And yet in my observations, it sticks out as the most difficult, or one of the most difficult. I almost always see that at some point they face mental health issues like depression, like anxiety. So many of the parts of a rich domestic life are missing. So I think that North Node in the fourth house is, if I had to state one, I think it's the hardest North Node to have in Western culture in 2024. But I also wanted to mention a runner-up, and that is North Node in the first house. They take so much pride and comfort and joy in their relationships, and they're always looking for a partner, and over again, life forces them to rely on themselves and be independent, and they tend to face a lot of difficulty in love, a lot of failed relationships, and it can be really, really hard when you're so used to having someone next to you to go it alone. So I think first house North Node is really challenging too. Anyway, I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, but this video has just been on my mind for a long time, and it's Mercury retrograde, so I'm going back and filming videos I had meant to film before, and so here's one of those. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please like this video or leave a comment or something so I know to make more content like this. Thank you for being here. Many blessings, and